Affairs, our 110 missions and consulates and other agencies under the ministry. We are constrained to, to call for this meeting because of our observation over the years that while Mr. President is requested by the crafters of our Constitution under Section 81 to bring his budget to the Parliament annually, there are statutes, laws of the land, which Mr. President adhered to in bringing his budget here. Mr. President, having appointed Minister of Budget and National Planning, as it used to be in the past, Minister for Finance and Budget and National Planning, issues budget called circular. And all MDAs, parastatals begin to put their books, the acts together. Because our democracy is modeled after that of the American system, we also have a law that we domesticated, Fiscal Responsibility Act, based on which Mr. President populates his MTF and build his budget. We also domesticated the Public Procurement Act, based on which agencies and MDAs, including missions, plan their procurement processes. And per Section 18 of that law, all MDAs are expected to conduct needs assessment, identify goods, works, and services, and conduct market survey. And paragraph G of that law insisted that the budget estimates should be anchored in our annual budget estimate. And I want to marry this law with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which Mr. President presented to us, which we approved. And if you look at the document, it gives Mr. President the window to plan within a period of 3 years. Meaning that if he starts a project and he cannot finish same in a single financial year, he can roll it over until it concludes same. So arising from that, we expected that the needs assessment so conducted by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the foreign missions, and the agencies will also follow that arrangement. Because we have perused our Constitution. We have perused all relevant acts that has to do with finance and budget planning. We have not seen anywhere where the word envelope is mentioned. I am privileged to be part of the lawmakers that crafted these laws in this House. I have not seen anywhere in our legislative instruments where the word envelope is mentioned. So we're a bit worried, the DG budget, the Parliamentary Budget Office, that a ministry, an agency of government that is captured in our Constitution, Chapter 2, Section 19, a ministry that is mandated to drive our foreign policies and objectives, an agency ministry that mirror our image internationally, an agency missions that can actually fund the entire budget of this country through FDI, foreign direct investment. Mr. President's visit to Brazil alone brought in an investment of $2.5 billion. So we're a bit worried that through oversight, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its missions evolved a need assessment of 1.5 trillion naira. And now, following the various statutes I've mentioned, Procurement Act, Fiscal Responsibility Act, and you are now giving the ministry, the missions, a party sum of 286 billion naira for the current expenditure and 65 billion naira as capital. So, what the Budget Office, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, submitted to Mr. President is at variance with the provisions of our laws. It's on this basis, sir, that we in our wisdom decided to engage the lieutenants of Mr. President, whom he has saddled with responsibility to support him, to invite you, to engage you. And let me say this, that often than not, when the Parliament engages a member of the executives, the conclusion is that of war, war, war. No. No, sir. Rather, in the instant case, it's about dialogue and engagement. Nigeria belongs to all of us. And it's on this basis that we invited the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning and DG Budget to come and tell Nigerian people's representatives the ratio, the reasoning why they gave Foreign Affairs, the missions, 286 billion that cannot even acquire a platform for Nigerian Navy. 286 billion that cannot even acquire the fighter jets we just acquired for the Air Force. And you have 110 missions and consulates. That's why we're inviting you, sir, to please tell us. If you convince us, perhaps, in line with the extant laws, maybe we'll agree with you. If otherwise, we'll see how we can, go back to work. This is the basis of your invitation. Please, you have the floor.
As statutorily stated in the Constitution. And it's in this that we have handheld with the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs in piloting and promoting the growth of the foreign policy of the federal government. The administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, DCFR, is at the forefront of ensuring that we grow the foreign policy of our nation to its enviable height and improve our mission and presence and diplomatic relations abroad. And to this end, the President himself, in driving the mandate of Renewed Hope agenda, has personally driven this course. In his numerous visits abroad, suffice it to say that last year, the President was in China, where we signed memorandum of understanding agreements to do a strategic partnership with China. We signed 5 agreements with China. We also signed 6 with the United Kingdom and the European Union Commission as well. In this same light, we've also had foreign presidents visited our country. The German president was here last year. The Prime Minister of India was also here last year. And like you rightly pointed out, the president was in Brazil. These successes are not without saying that the president and the administration are doing everything also to ensure to grow the foreign policy and promote our missions work abroad. So in considering the fact that we're trying to make money available for everyone, we would not negate the fact that a lot of successes have been recorded in the promotion of the foreign policy of our dear nation. So it's been that in the past, yes, we have handheld the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have done everything possible in ensuring that funds are allocated and made adequate for the headquarters ministry and the missions abroad to execute their programs both home and abroad. Suffice to say, like I earlier said, that the strategic assignment given to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is so central. It's so central to the image of the country, and the administration really understands the pivotal role it plays. And with that, at the Prime Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, we're giving full support for the activities of the Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, both at home and in missions abroad. With respect to the needs assessment, like you earlier mentioned, it arises out of planning. Needs assessment arises out of planning, and budget speaks to planning. When plannings are adequately carried out, policies, programs, projects are itemized, and budgets are drawn up to answer to those policies, to those programs, and to the projects as well. So suffice it to say that we have done quite a lot, and we are still doing quite a lot in hand-holding and cooperating to ensure that adequate funds are made available for the ministry to execute its mandate as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended. I would like to invite my DG to speak to the respect you mentioned about the envelope. I would invite him, because he's a technical expert on when we're drafting this thing, to be able to speak to the envelope issue you mentioned. I wanted to open these remarks for you to understand that the government is poised and the government is really supporting the cause of the foreign mission, both home and abroad. Thank you so much. DG, please.
But where we desire and deserve improvement, we should not opt for improvement. No one could have described the situation of our foreign missions better than you did. At once what you said conjures up the image to expect when you visit a typical Nigerian mission abroad. And the scope is really precise. We have 109 diplomatic missions abroad, comprising of 76 embassies, 22 high commissions, and 11 consulates. So the problem you have described is as ubiquitous as Nigeria's presence worldwide. The situation was certainly worse 3 years ago, when Nigeria's debt service proclaimed almost 100% of the country's revenue. We started seeing improvements under this administration. Went through deft financial engineering. In year one, debt service was brought from a high of 100% to 65%. And if you talk to our missions abroad, they will tell you that last year was the year in which they started to experience some relief. We are still not there yet. Bold reforms have been embarked upon by the current administration, starting with the liberalization of the foreign exchange rate and the withdrawal of subsidy on PMS and other products. We expect to save about 11 trillion naira from these two measures alone. The savings started to be actualized in October last year. It was just that the main beneficiaries of the savings, in particular the state governments, collected the money and kept mute. But we knew that they took a lot much more than they had in the last several years. we have tabled before the National Assembly tax bills that you are considering, that we expect you to improve so that we'll be able to collect more revenues. Mr. President has gone out of his way to insist on 2.12 million barrels per day, a very ambitious target for oil output, and quite a number of opinions contend that this is very ambitious. It is so. And the implication is not lost on him. But he has seen that we must look for the revenue to be able to attend to these problems. That is why this year's budget is ambitious. Last year, it was about 36 trillion naira. This year, it is almost 50 trillion naira. Mr. Chairman, what I heard from you is whatever committee normally puts before us when we interact, and we are all right. It is a very challenging task when all we can do before we begin to reap the fruits of the hard work that both the executive arm of government, the National Assembly, and even the judiciary are mounting at this point in time to improve the situation in Nigeria. But we are not there yet. So we have to continue to manage scarcity. Whether we call it envelope budgeting, and Mr. Chairman, I honestly speaking, for the 4 months that I have been in this position, I do not like it. So again, my personal attitude to it is certainly a common ground that I have with you. I have seen that it gives money where not a kobo or dime ought to have been given. I have also seen that several others with tremendous capacity to absorb more are given much less than what they could have judiciously used. So I believe we'll be talking to ourselves, we'll be asking for your opinions in reviewing this budgeting system. But having said that, my attitude is always to show the little that I can do to improve situations I have inherited. We applied the envelope system throughout the various sectors. And I would mention that I haven't had 20% of the meetings that I had with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Just one ministry out of its sector that I would say I did anything close to that for several other sectors. And that is because what they were telling us were facts already known to us, even in our private capacities, before we moved into our official positions. I stand to be corrected that after the application of what I made on the ground, the budget system was already underway when I reported. It has been with us since 2006. I think it was started by Dr. Ungozi Iweala, and we haven't reviewed it since then. And I'm glad that not only on this side, even in our side, we think we should not be throwing money at projects and programs that are not generating outcomes. But what have I done to show my sensitivity and responsiveness to a problem? We applied 25% increase in overhead and capital, not only to the headquarters, but to the 109 diplomatic missions. My hands are certainly tied because I also have obligations to other sectors. So, Mr. Chairman, like I said, if we disagreed, then I could be citing my reasons one after the other. But I just want the National Assembly, to appreciate the improvements to the country's liquidity situation that have occurred in the last 18 years, and the intentions of Mr. President to do a lot more. And I think passing our tax bills in a manner that satisfies or balances interest across the country, that brings the country together, and also the economic stabilization bills that we'll be bringing to the National Assembly, as well as your insistence alongside Mr. President's directive that we must have substantial reduction in the cost of upstream oil and gas. Because why else would the money come in the short run to satisfy the needs of every sector? But until then, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of this August committee will have to be managing scarcities at a lower end, hoping that at some point we'll be able to raise the threshold. But also looking at the situation of our missions abroad. If we cannot have as much money as is judiciously repaid, to reverse the negative image all over the world, except in few cases, we're unable to meet our obligations to local staff, to our own staff. We're unable to pay our utility bills. Why don't we do what we can? Why don't we consider a significant reduction in the number of foreign missions abroad until our finances improve? Because it is not uncommon to find other countries, and even Nigeria will do this, where one embassy looks after a cluster of nation states that are within reach, Mr. Chairman, rather than to continue to compound the problem. We do not have the money that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs requires. But at the same time, I think the honorable ministers should also sit down with Mr. President to see what can be done, because even if you are disengaging, even if you are reducing the number of embassies, you cannot walk away from your liabilities. Yes. So this is my humble explanation, Mr. Chairman, sir.
We've toured virtually all the countries in Africa, and we've seen the state of these missions, right? We wrote them because we were probably thinking that, you know, civil servants, you hardly hear them talking. Rather, they take directives, and in most of their men will say, "I'm directed." Even where nobody directs, they will say, "I'm directed." So we probably asked them that perhaps there is a gap between the ministry, budget and national planning, and budget office. We asked them. Maybe you didn't tell them what you are going through, because this is what we have seen. Coupled with the fact that we also have experts among us. You know, we have engineers, we have quantity surveyor, we have accountants, lawyers, among us that can see things and even ask private people to help us look at, if we have to fix this problem, what will it cost? So we asked the ministry to give us what is submitted to your office. Because the only person all of us will go to is number one, is Mr. President, right? We asked them, give us what you have submitted to budget office. Because we want to understand the basis of giving you the 25% increment they are giving to you in terms of over recurrent expenditure and of course capital. And when you look at the problems in the core missions, that Nigeria needs in the Committee of Nations to seek support, contest positions and all that you need to rally their support, sir. My leader, you need to go to Washington, D.C. You need to go to New York. You need to go to Atlanta and see the CG residents. Sir, if it were to be my private property, I would have fixed that building. Because if you don't fix it now, the cost of fixing it can be better imagined. When you go to the Washington, sir, you see the state of our mission there. It's something else. Sir, you see Nigerian House in New York. You can imagine the quantum of money, efforts that the then General Babangida administration, made to put that structure in place, sir. Sir, should we open our eyes and allow that structure to go down? Should we allow our residencies in New York, sir, to go down? Sir, if you perhaps maybe want to involve a law to give us a permission to reclassify our assets. It could be a way out, but we cannot continue to look at the way our assets are rotting away. Sir, our CG in Douala, he has not paid rent in the last 6 months. FSO, Foreign Service Officers, are sleeping in the chancery. That is also, in poor state, sir. I can continue to mention the state of this mission. Sir, something has to be done. So, PS, please, we need a copy. Because to go to be your colleague in budget and national planning to discuss is not known to law. To meet my uncle, Tanimu, and discuss, it's not known to law. What is known to law is records. So we asked for a copy of what you submitted to the budget. I'm not talking about what submitted based on the envelope ceiling given to you. We are asking for what you submitted to the budget office based on actual needs assessment carried out. Because that is the document we are taking to Mr. President. So please, we need that document from you. We are on the same page with him. He also understands. He goes to Umura. He see our states in Riyadh. in Jeddah. Our embassy is not where it should be in Jeddah. We don't even have one in Riyadh. We are renting. In Doha, we're also renting. We've gone around. If you go to this country, Romania, we're also renting. Budapest. Okay, sir, I put this to you, sir. Part of the issues, because we have 2 layers of meeting, that I want to discuss with the Foreign Affairs Ministry officials, because they do not understand how they're also putting the ministry into trouble. My leader, sir, in Bucharest, you have money in capital to acquire properties. Based on appropriation, based on the law crafted by 360 members, 109 senators, assented by Mr. President, that take this sum, buy property. A director wrote to put a stop to it. Now the properties that they will have bought with about $770,000 is now in millions. It's now in millions. Our rep, our ambassador residence in Morocco was to be fixed with $300,000. And job was underway. A director wrote to put a stop to it. This is the 2nd year, sir. And now the cost of fixing that ambassador residence, sir, has gone up. That negates our constitution. That's somebody causing wastages. Causing wastages. So, PS, we want the document. Please give us the document you submitted to Budget Office. Because we must get to the roots of this matter. You see that you are not communicating properly with the ministry, because DG said that of all other ministry, he has paid more attention to you. But what are you discussing? We want the document. That's the document we are taking to Mr. President.
As a procurement person, there's something we learned from America, trading with with China. They have a department in China that do stuff in the area of quality control. So if anything is coming into the U.S., if you're a U.S. citizen, you want to trade from China, you have to go through that department in China that will tell you, look, we must establish that this quality is good, but you have to pay for it. So the mission is making money for American government in the U.S. So where I'm going is this: even if we have to merge the proximity of some nations and what we do there, yes, they issue passport for Nigerians, even if it is 1 person, 2 person that need a passport. Yeah, we don't need to tax them too much for getting those passports. But people still need the services of the nation. So that one comes to how we need to be very careful when we need to merge. But it's your area, it's your department. You know many of these missions. But given the record record which we have here based on visitation to many of all these missions, it's quite it's not encouraging. But if you must do this, maybe there's a need for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to look at how they can do a structural business development plan for many of these missions. They can't just be a mission, receiving money, not bringing something in. You understand? The commercial desk can help many of our business people in many of all these countries to help them generate information, archives this information, and you pay for it if you need it. So this can serve as a little income for them. Even if we push that we do this, like the chairman said, getting a house for $2,000 to paying a rent of $80,000, at what point? And the world is going through so many reforms. There's nothing saying that we cannot have a short let in many of our missions that will be detached from us, but it's making money for them. It's still a business plan, which we can do. So we need to justify through many of all this process the reason why some mission must stay, some mission must be merged. So we need to think like a country, like a nation who want to make money, who still want to provide services. Please, this will still help us. At least pending the time we find our way out of all this economic mess where we are in right now. We cannot deny the fact that we are in the situation that is not too good, right now. So while we're doing that, we can put one or two together and get this. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Trips. And what we got to understand from them was that even in terms of our subscription, Nigeria play the big brother role in Africa. So when they say we are not paying subscription again, you see it makes, it's so shameful because these little small countries pay up their subscription to the various, like the AU, ECOWAS, and so on. So you will discover that they need to, review the budget of the ministry is really very important so that we don't face this kind of embarrassment. You see, the Foreign Affairs Ministry is just like the image maker of Nigeria outside the shores of the country. So if we go and a small country like Cameroon is paying her subscription and Nigeria is, you see, how does it sound? So as stakeholders, we on our part are pleading that it's not as if we want to push you into, because we are members of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, we want, things to be done differently for the ministry. We are looking at the image of our country outside the shores of this, outside this place. Thank you. That's my contribution.
Fiscal Responsibility Act, based on Public Procurement Act, sir, what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should get should at least be 750 billion. Not the 286 billion or 65 billion you gave to us in the budget. I am following the law. I am following the law that gave Mr. President power to bring the budget because we approved the MTF for him. That's our plea. So, when we meet like this, people think we're not fighting, sir, right? There are a lot of takeaway, a lot of gains when the Parliament and the Executive, when we meet like this. So our plea, we will follow it in letter to you, what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs mission should get, based on provision of law, not by somebody's assumption. You also by law, is 750 billion naira. And two, to allow the missions acquire properties by mortgage. Sir, once you do that, sir, I am telling you, they will have enough money. In fact, they will not disturb you again. They will have enough money to run their overheads. If they can acquire property by mortgage, we'll just calculate each mission. How much do you need to service your mortgage? Put it in the budget. Easily. In the next 10 years, 20 years, the government continue to exist infinity. And the property will be ours. And sir, another thing is this, sir. You need to allow the missions to reclassify their assets. If you do that, sir, in fact, they'll bring money for you. If you allow New York to reclassify our assets, the kind of money they'll bring to you, you'll be surprised. Please, these are the things, understandings that we need from you. Thank you very much. My colleagues, you have the floor. If you have comments, observations, please.
Like North Korea, where we don't need to make friends with other nations, because, we complain of funding. It's like a father with 6 daughters, and they come to the father to say, give us school fees and upkeep. The father says, how much? Say 500,000. The father said, well, take 80, and go. It's not like the father is just telling the children not to go back, those daughters not to go back to school, or just sending them into prostitution. If we don't want to run these missions, let us say we don't want to run, these missions. Mr. President's wish is, for us to sell, our country to other nations, and by so doing, provide good services for our people who are living over there. But if you cannot realize the objective, because we all complain, no funds, then there's no point, I think we must do something about it. And the chairman of our committee, our able chairman, was right when he said there are agencies that get some funding, more than what they require. I'm not saying we should take money from them, but we should pay attention to ministries and agencies that are very, very important, to the Nigerian image. And I think the Foreign Affairs, is one of such ministries that we should pay serious attention, to. I don't want to go back repeating what my able chairman has said, but indeed, many of these missions, it's a shame. It's a shame to get there, to be very sincere. Shame to get there. If you're in Nigeria, you won't be proud, of yourself. And if you listen to their complaints, genuine complaints, it's appalling, and we must do something about it. So I appreciate your concern, but we are just still talking the way we talked 10 years ago, that no funding, and so on and so forth like that. No, at one point, we must rise above that, complaint and be practical. So I join Mr. Chairman to agree, that the minimum that the Foreign Affairs, Ministry should get is what, he had just mentioned. And if we put it in prayers, and I like prayers, Mr. Chairman, if we put it in prayers, best wishes, there's nothing God cannot do. So, but when we all agree that it should be like that, Mr. President, we approve it. And may it be like that, for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Same page. You have also seen, even your own personal capacity, what we are talking about. The committee has gone round to oversight. They have seen the situation of things. The ministry is also, so all of us are on the same page. So what we are now saying is that, please, Mr. DG, the PAMSEC budget office, please go back to the drawing board. The budget, the bill you submitted is still a work in progress. We know of committees that have gone back and, there have been little improvement and adjustments. So based on this consensus, no, I understand, sir. Sir, but I do know with my experience that probably you can still come back and say, oh, based on this, because the truth is this. You see, some people may not understand that when Mr. President brings a budget, yes, by practice, the budget is said to be dead on arrival. However, in practical terms, a parliament should not take the control of an economy off the president, because the crafters of Constitution has given him the power to manage the economy per Section 5 of the Constitution. So we are very mindful, and that is where the synergy, the cooperation between the executive and the legislature is flowing from. People might not understand. People might just think maybe they are rubber. No, that's all over the world. It doesn't make sense to take the control of the economy off the president, because that is his own job. And that is why I'm coming back to you, that I haven't listened to you and you haven't listened to us, and we're on agreement. And so there is need. You yourself can also go back to Mr. President, that Mr. President, who is your employer, to say truly and truly indeed. Yes. I didn't even know that, but me, I'm just. So please do that for us. So additionally, sir, I also want you to look at issue of consular services. Sir, you know the size of America, you know the size of Canada. Sir, for a Nigerian citizen residing in Edmonton, in Calgary, to come to Ottawa for consular service, sir, that person will fly for up to 4 or 5 hours and spend so much. Whereas, just like my colleague observed, we can rent a small office there where consular services can be rendered. It's just for immigration and one consular officer to be there. That is in Canada. Similarly, in the US, you have a place like Texas, San Francisco, right? that can also render services to, after all, they are brothers and sisters. So you may see us tinkering, which we're allowed to do by virtue of our constitution. We have to really make this consulate functional. So do you know we have a consulate? You have a consulate in UK, in Manchester. The building is there, but it's not operational. And do you know why, sir? Because there is no fund to man the place. And you just need to put about 2 or 3 personnel there, pick up their bills, their utility bills, and then they render services to Nigerians. And to also investors who also wants to come to Nigeria. So these are the things that we're also looking at, that will add value. So on this occasion, sir, we really want to thank you for coming, and please extend our warm greetings to the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning. Please ask him to add to put more.
Are you satisfied with the explanation made by the DG, your issue?
The DG himself is very aware of the constraints of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the constraints that our 109 missions face abroad. Of course, the idea that Nigeria should downsize and close some of its own missions might not be the best approach. The fact is, diplomacy is not child's play. Other countries such as South Africa, Egypt. South Africa has about 124 missions abroad. Egypt has 151 missions abroad. So Nigeria, as the most populous nation in Africa with 109 missions abroad, shouldn't really be experiencing the sort of challenges that we are experiencing at the moment. But I believe that with some enhancement of the budgetary allocations and, of course, a rejig of some of our processes, of course, are making the buildings that we have, properties across the various countries of the world more efficient, putting them in a more functional state is imperative, because we have to conduct diplomatic processes in functional buildings. At the same time, you have to understand that the consular aspect of citizen diplomacy is something that Nigerians have been clamoring for. Consular visits, making provisions for even our citizens in distress abroad, the citizens that are in prisons, that have to be visited to ascertain their conditions is very, very important. And constantly we get those kinds of inquiries, not just at our embassies, but at the Home Ministry, and the budgetary constraints make it very difficult for officers in those missions abroad to undertake such consular visits in line with the President's commitment to citizen diplomacy. And encouraging foreign direct investment is also a very critical aspect of diplomacy. And if we are not able to do so because we're not able to encourage businessmen and those who are expressing business interests in our country by bringing them into our missions and having the much needed discussions with them, because our missions are in a powerless state, that in no way would align with the President's commitment to harnessing our immense potentials in the area of investment. Thank you.